Good evening, and welcome to Arroyo Live. From the Pasadena Media Center, I'm Joe Carbonetta. This program is produced by Pasadena Media to help enrich our community through informative and meaningful conversation. If you have questions or comments, you can share them with us anytime at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org. Across the U.S., there are an estimated 567,715 individuals who are homeless. In California alone, the number of those who are homeless is estimated to be 151,278. That number represents almost 20% of the nation's total homeless population. Perhaps equally disturbing, 10,980 of those who are homeless in California are veterans of our nation's armed forces, a fact all too timely in its significance, as in November, we look to celebrate all those who have served on Veterans Day. There are many groups and organizations working tirelessly and often on minimum budgets to provide outreach and assistance to our country's growing homeless population. It is a battle seemingly without end, and one some have questioned can ever be won. Tonight, I talk with the executive directors from two of the largest organizations working to help the homeless, Union Station Homeless Services and the Salvation Army. Union Station Homeless Services began in 1973 as a group of community volunteers serving the poor and homeless in downtown Pasadena. The Salvation Army is a Christian organization founded in 1865 in London, England, to provide social work and disaster relief worldwide. Please join me for tonight's edition of Arroyo Live. Joining me now are Miskey, Executive Director for Union Station Homeless Services, and Major Roy Wild, Executive Director for Salvation Army, Pasadena Tabernacle. Good evening to both of you, and thank you for joining me tonight. And if I could start with you, I'd like to ask you to tell the audience at home a little more about your organization.
Sure, Joe, I'd be happy to. So Union Station Homeless Services has been in existence for almost 50 years. We started out in Pasadena, but now we cover all of the San Gabriel Valley and Northeast Los Angeles. Our focus is really on, as the words above my head say, ending homelessness and rebuilding lives. So we work with people who are experiencing homelessness, families and individuals, and we help them get them housed and then back on track for stability, and really help them to reclaim their lives and to reclaim hope and a purpose. So that's who we are.
All right, thank you very much. Roy, would you tell us a little bit about the Salvation Army, please?
Sure. Salvation Army here in Pasadena has been serving Pasadena area since 1888. So for about 133 years, Salvation Army has been here. And Salvation Army is a faith-based nonprofit organization. So in addition to overseeing all the social services that happen for the Salvation Army here in Pasadena, I'm also an ordained minister. But with that, we serve without discrimination. So regardless of what anybody believes or how they identify or whatever their status is in life, we provide a service with them, for them. And we do that, and we're motivated by the love of God to do that. And so we serve the greater Pasadena area, and whoever comes to our doors, we're willing to help them out or get them in the right place and get them connected to a resource where they can get the help that maybe we can't provide.
Thank you for joining us again. I know that both of your organizations work tirelessly to, among other things, assist the homeless. I know there's a range of services that each of your organizations provide, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the homeless situation, and perhaps not only locally, but across the state. Certainly there's an explosion in the homeless population across the country. What's it like dealing with this it appears ever worsening situation, especially in the wake of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, homelessness, as you said, is growing. We always say to people, we've been dealing with more than one crisis, both homelessness and then the pandemic on top of it. It's a struggle because we actually know how to end homelessness for people. We know what to do, and we do it very successfully. The issue is The high cost of housing is sending more and more people into homelessness every day. I think the stats in Los Angeles County, we house about 203 people a day permanently, and 207 people a day fall into homelessness, new people. So we just can't keep up with the numbers, and that's why we're seeing the increase. It's not that we don't know what to do, because we do. It's just we have no housing to put people in, so they remain on our streets. And it is a huge crisis of our times here in Los Angeles County.
Yeah, I would just echo what Ann was saying. I think all nonprofits are seeing an uptick in services, especially since the pandemic. One of the things I'm sure, like most agencies, when the pandemic hit last year was, at least for us, was definitely an uptick in families that were needing assistance. And these families really didn't fall in under the picture, if you will, of somebody who was in danger of losing their home or homeless, where you had parents that were working, children that were in school, and because of the pandemic, with whether they were laid off, lost their job, whatever the case might be, we saw an uptick in whole families needing our services across the board. And I would venture to say across the board in the state for all nonprofits, but especially for the Salvation Army, we definitely saw an uptick in that. It's the saddest thing when you see, when you have our somebody coming to one of our shelters, not for shelter, but for food, for a hot meal in the evening, and you see a mom and a dad and two kids roll out of a minivan, and they're trying to be incognito, if you will, but you can definitely tell that they've been sleeping in their car. And we saw a big uptick in that over this last year, especially with the pandemic. And now, another issue is the rent moratorium and what's going to happen with that. And it's a real challenge, and I think you said it great. I mean, we do know what to do, and it is housing. We do need to provide housing, and I do believe the state is working on that. And here in within Pasadena, the city's working on that, in the county, but the need is just exponential, and it is a real struggle it's the crisis at the moment, really. It's the crisis of homelessness.
Roy, you used the word challenge to describe the situation, and I'm certain it's a very good choice of word for the situation. But I'd like to ask both of you, besides the simple uptick in numbers that the pandemic brought, what other challenges are you now faced with in trying to assist the homeless and those who are of less means?
Well, I know for us, a challenge is really with finances and finding donors to help with not only the physical commodities, the food that we pass out, but just physical donations as well. Especially where we are in our economy right now, and the challenge that we're facing as we're all of us are dealing with the cost of living that's going up. It's kind of a very, I don't want to say it's a scary time, but it's very concerning, especially as we head into the holidays, because the holidays is a time when people are more generous than normal. I think a real challenge for us will be, anyways, here, and what we're kind of forecasting is really that monetary gift in helping us to then provide our services year round for those that we serve, because just as the increase of the need is going up for several demographics, not just those that are out on the streets that are homeless, that you're what we maybe call chronic homeless, that you see pushing the shopping carts, but also those that are on the margins that are trying to live paycheck by paycheck. That increase is going up, but then also people are naturally wanting to hold on to their own finances, if you will, because of the uncertainty of where things are in this current economy and kind of where things are at. So anyways, for us, I don't know what your thoughts are, Ann, but that's kind of one of the major issues that we're concerned about within our world, within the nonprofit world.
Yeah, I see that. And, I was talking to someone earlier, and I said that, the famous saying, for want of a horse, the kingdom was lost. And often we see families who are just on the, not just families, individuals on the verge. And often they're just a few dollars away from falling into homelessness. And it's, for example, you might have somebody who has a job, but they have to travel for the job, and suddenly their car breaks down, and they're faced with the choice of fixing their car so they can go to work, or paying their rent. And so it's, do I keep my job and become homeless, or do I pay my rent, and then I lose my car, lose my job, and then I'm going to become homeless again. So a lot of the work we do is around how do we help people get over that hump. Um, Sometimes it's not even a huge amount of money. It could be a little bit, but it has to be flexible. So that is absolutely an issue. I would say two other big issues that right now we are facing. And one is burnout, because our staff go 24/7 out there under incredibly difficult situation, and then COVID on top of it and all of that, and trying to keep going, keep helping people, keep supporting people. And people are really getting burnt out. We have a tremendous lack of staff, like most industries right now. We're seeing this. So that's a huge issue. And then I think the thing that is the hardest for all to deal with is the backlash that we experience. On the one hand, we have people who are incredibly helpful, generous, supportive, kind, all of those things. And then we get those people who say, we don't want those people in our community. And every time we try to move forward, try to create housing, try to get help, of this community backlash, and which to me is a really sad statement, because these are the most vulnerable people in society. And we know if we can get them housed in supportive services, they're just going to be your neighbor, and you'll never know that they were once homeless. But people have trouble believing that.
And that leads right into my next question, which is what it's like to deal with the current climate. And the backlash that you refer to seems to extend across the entire board. It begins in the political arena, where you have one party that wants to extend services to those less fortunate, and the opposing party that is really trying to curtail additional funding. And you move that down to a more local level. You have individuals that want to help the homeless, and at the same time, you have individuals or groups pressuring political leaders to clean up homeless encampments, relocate people, and it always seems to be an issue where it's you can put them anywhere except in my backyard. How do you deal with these situations?
That's an excellent question. We come at it from a variety of perspectives. I think one of the first things is just education and explaining to people, really trying to get to know people and talk to people in the neighborhood, show them evidence, show them the fact that, in fact, getting these people housed in your community is going to vastly improve your community. And that if we come together and help those who are highly vulnerable, it's really good for everybody. And moving them around doesn't work, because you may move them next door to the community next door, to the right, and the community on the left is moving their people to your community, because there are just so many people. You can't get rid of them. And so that's one piece. Somebody asked me recently, how can we end homelessness in this country? And I said, we can talk about housing, and we can talk about services and all of those things, which are absolutely needed. At the end of the day, what will end homelessness is when everybody recognizes the humanity in one another, and that is a human being on the street. It's not just an addict or someone with mental health issues, but it's a fellow human being. And when we get to that point, we're going to be successful. But some days it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, there's always a stigma, wouldn't you say, and with the homeless population, that comes with that. And to a certain extent, I mean, it is a very vulnerable population, and there are, a lot of clients that we serve on a daily basis that do have mental health issues, and they do have those drug addictions, and and you see the outcome of that, and sometimes they can be hard to work with or belligerent. But those are the minority as opposed to the majority. And I think so. The stigma is I think every time somebody sees somebody on the side of the road, holding a sign, or that you see them under the underpass, I think, Ann, you're right. I think there's a judgment that happens. That they're a drug addict and they just want to be there. And for a small population, that is probably true. But there are a growing number of people. Again, I think it's been really sped up because of the pandemic, who are, like Ann was saying, have had to make some really tough choices, living paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that just couldn't make it. And so they're finding themselves out on the street. We have people who come here who we give them food every week, and we have case managers that are trying to help them find jobs, and they're very competent people that really don't fall into that stigma of what you think as a homeless person. And so I think that's a biggest challenge is fighting that stigma. And I like what you said, Ann, is really seeing people through the lens as a human being. And any one of us could be in that situation, at a moment's notice. And we need to make that human connection in order to really address these issues and look at them as a whole person and take a holistic approach to the clients that we're dealing with that are on the verge of homelessness or they are homeless.
Are we winning the battle against homelessness?
That's a good question. I think that's a great question. And I think that it's one of those things that I would say that there's now more time than any, I think, in recent history. More people are open and aware of the homeless crisis that is at hand, and more people are willing, especially the city officials, I can definitely speak for here in Pasadena, are willing and wanting to see this issue be addressed. And we're a testament to that for the Salvation Army, where we've received these funds from the city and the county to help build housing for 64 individuals. So I think that speaks in of itself of the intent that the city has. And so I think we're going in the right direction to be able to end this battle with homelessness. And I think greater days are ahead of us as we work together to collaborate to be able to meet human needs who are suffering.
It's a tough question. I would say as I said earlier, we know what to do to end homelessness, and on an individual basis, we're ending homelessness for record numbers of people. But we are not getting our arms around the root causes of the problem, which is the only way we are going to end it. If we only look at it as an individual issue, whether it's us individually working with people or people blaming the individual saying, well, he or she made bad choices and therefore, they're homeless. If we only look at it that way, we will not end homelessness until we as a society address the systemic problems. I mentioned racism, mass criminalization, the foster care system, all of those things, then no, we will not win the battle. Until such time as we recognize it's a bigger issue than the guy on the street corner who drinks too much alcohol. So I'm hopeful in the sense that we continue to house record numbers of people. We get a lot of support from the city, we get support from donors, all of those things. But again, there's sometimes, and I speak not Pasadena, but large, a refusal to recognize what's really causing homelessness. So that's what it's going to take. I'm hopeful, but concerned.
I'd like to ask each of you to take a moment to talk to us about the Port and Hope programs and your involvement in those programs.
We work very closely with both the police and the fire department here in Pasadena. It's a really important partnership that we have with them. Often they're the first people that will come in contact with people experiencing homelessness. Some cases, people will call about someone who's on the street, or maybe someone gets sick who's experiencing homelessness. And so they have been the first responders. And I think in discussions with both the police and the fire, we discovered that, they are coming at it from a certain direction perspective and maybe don't have the training to work with our population. But there's also other things that they're really good at that we don't have. So what we have done through the city is created a true partnership. So we have staff that actually work on the Hope team, which is the police team that works with this population, as well as we have staff working with the Port team, the fire department. And so our staff are actually embedded in their teams. So again, when they go out to a call, if the person really needs like medical assistance and you've got a paramedic there, that's great. But maybe it's more of a social service approach that they need, or housing that they need. So our staff are there. So we have found this to be an incredibly positive partnership. And we're also learning, what are the other groups dealing with? So how can we help and support you? How can you help and support us? So yeah, we love working with them, and we really appreciate their partnership.
Yeah, I think these programs of Hope and Port, again, with me just coming new to Pasadena and really getting a feel for the culture here. Again, one of the things that my wife and I have really noticed is just that this sense of wanting to help, and there is a sense of wanting to meet people's needs and work together. So I think with the police department and the fire department offering these services to be able to allow agencies, different nonprofits like Union Station to be embedded with these programs, speaks a lot to the intent, I think, of our leaders of the city, speaks intent to our city council and again, our first responders who really see this as a holistic approach and see this as it takes a village. It's not just one person or one way to do it. And everybody has a part to play, and the police and the fire obviously have a part to play. And with their willingness of being willing to bring in somebody who can help meet a need that they can't, again, I think that speaks to not only the police and the fire, but those that unfortunately that have to are on the receiving end sometimes from the police or maybe the fire, because it's usually not a good thing when somebody has to encounter the police or fire department. It really kind of then can help break down maybe some of those barriers that show that, look, yeah, wow, there are people that do care. There are people in uniform that do care. There are people in authority that aren't here just to harass and give me a hard time, but they really do want to meet my needs. And so I think it's a great program, a great perspective to have. And I just applaud the city for endorsing it and making it happen.
Certainly, we've heard a lot recently about mental issues in society, that there's a growing percentage of people who are dealing with extreme depression as well as other problems. But what would you say currently is making up the largest demographic of those people that are experiencing homelessness, not only across the nation, but especially here locally?
Yeah, so there have been lots of studies actually done on this. And again, we hear stuff all the time. It's all mental health, it's all, addiction. In fact, the majority of people experiencing homelessness are people that Roy said really are families that are there for purely economic reasons because they have a job. Often they're working, but they have a job that doesn't pay the rent. One of the fastest growing groups in the homeless population are sort of at end seniors who are being priced out of the market. So work their whole lives, had families, and suddenly are becoming homeless, or youth, especially kids exiting the foster care system. So the majority of people are not the ones that, again, or you talked about the shopping cart, the homeless. But one thing I think it's really important to remember about mental health, there are a lot more people with mental health issues living in houses on your street, probably people family, friends, coworkers with mental health issues. Mental health does not mean you're going to be homeless. What means you're going to be homeless is poverty. And if you have mental health issues, it may be harder for you to make a living. You may be more likely to become homeless. The other thing that's really important to remember is life on the streets is brutal. And if you didn't start with a mental health issue when you became homeless, believe me, 100% of the people out there are going to have it because it's traumatic, depression, all of those kinds of things. The number of severely mentally health people, again, people that you would really say, that's probably about 1% of the population. The rest, it's all sorts of other issues. But once they're housed and receive services, again, they're not going to be any different than Mary who lives across the street from you. So it's really about that life on the street.
Yeah, I think that, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Joe.
No, please continue.
I was just going to say, when you ask what is the main issue that you see, that's causing homelessness, I think that's a hard question. I don't think you can really narrow it down to one thing. But again, I would agree with what Ann is saying, is that there's a variety of reasons. Nobody wakes up and says, oh, I want to be homeless today. Nobody on the street as a kid says, I want to grow up to be homeless. There's always a story, and everybody's stories is different but similar at the same time. And I think that again, it's the humanizing of it that we need to not lose sight of. But I would say and I'm not an expert, I don't have any data to back this up. This is just based on my interaction with the clients that we're serving and doing this for 22 years, I do think that there is an exponential increase of those that are on the verge of losing their homes or have recently just lost their homes because of financial issues in the job market and trying to make ends meet. And that has been a big uptick, especially in this last year. And that's a concern for us moving forward, is are we ready? How do we embrace and to be able to embrace these people to help for those that are literally have a job or maybe one income and they can't afford the rent, they can't afford to buy a house, they can't afford anything in the area. And so that, to me, if I was to put an answer on it for right now in our sphere, I think that is one of the major contributors is the economy and the cost of living here in California.
Roy, I think you mentioned this earlier, but I believe it also bears repeating. Certainly, we are looking at an end shortly to the renters assistance programs that were in effect as a result of the pandemic. Does that leave you both bracing for a new wave of homelessness?
I think so. I mean, I think, we don't have a crystal ball to tell exactly what's going to happen, but I do think that the signs are pointing to that this could be a reality once these moratoriums are lifted. And people are going to have to start paying rent again. And for those who haven't had to because they've been affected by COVID. And it's a trickle-down effect, right? It's the economy's behind it because somebody somewhere always has to get paid because it's somebody's property. And so I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I do believe that we are going to see a wave of another uptick, if you will, of people who were housed, whether they're single or families, and they're going to be, potentially out on the streets. And that's a whole other concern because we already have, so many on the streets now, and it could get, exponentially worse.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all braced for what could be a bigger storm. We don't know. We keep our fingers crossed. I mean, we have seen an uptick already. And I think it's the cost of housing, but even the cost of food. I mean, inflation is the highest rate it's been in years.
Yeah.
People who are living literally dollar to dollar, paycheck to paycheck, a small increase can again mean the difference between having a home and living in your car, losing your car and living on the streets. So it's scary times.
Mm-hmm.
There are several statistics that suggest that the largest percentage of the homeless population across the U.S. is actually concentrated here in California. Is it safe to say that the cost of living in this state is a contributory factor?
I would say so, yes. I mean, I would say so, in my opinion.
It's absolutely true. If you look, there's a direct correlation between housing cost and numbers of homeless people experiencing homelessness. And that is, and it's in California, it's a combination, not just of the high cost of housing, because there are other places that have that, but we also have relatively low paying jobs. And the job market, it's a bigger differential in California than a lot of other states. So you combine those two things and, again, you have this issue. And it's ironic too, that when the economy does really well, you may get more people experiencing homelessness because prices go up. So, the economy does really well if you have means. If you don't, you're actually in a worse situation.
Well, so many people, I think, are aware of the existence of both of your organizations and loosely have an understanding of what your organizations are trying to accomplish. But especially for our viewers at home, I'd like to take an opportunity to give them a greater understanding of what it's like, both for Union Station and for the Salvation Army. And I'd like to ask each of you to maybe walk us through a day in the life of your respective organizations. Last time around, we started with, and so Roy, can we start with you this time and tell us what you face on a daily basis?
Sure. So for us in the Salvation Army, we have a wide variety of programs that Salvation Army offers here, specifically in Pasadena. Our major program that we have is a food pantry program, and it's a client choice. program. So the clients are able to come in and then actually choose the items that they want, which we found actually is an empowering to the clients, because instead of us telling them, here's what we think you need and here's what we should have, it actually gives them the opportunity to make a choice of the items they want or don't want. And so that's our here on our site here in Pasadena, that's our biggest program, where we serve about 100 people a day through that program. And then in addition to that, we also have case managers that work with clients that we serve, who will help assist them in finding housing. Salvation Army across the state and LA County and specifically has permanent supportive housing programs, shelters for men and for women. And so our case managers are able to connect them with Salvation Army programs, and then also network with other nonprofits to help get them into housing and other needs that the Salvation Army may not be able to meet with other agencies here in Pasadena and the greater area. And so we also have a very large, at least here for us, for the Salvation Army Pasadena, we have Thanksgiving meals. Obviously, that's coming up. So, that's a big thing for us. And we're getting ready to serve about 300 seniors. We deliver meals to 300 seniors, and then we'll probably have about 200 or 50 walk up that we serve for the day of on Thanksgiving. And then in addition to our Christmas programs, gearing up, where we're going to this year plan to serve 750 families, about 2,500 children with toys. And this year, what we're doing, instead of doing a food drive for families and giving them food boxes, we're actually encouraging donors to donate towards gift cards. And so we're going to be purchasing gift cards to grocery stores for the families. So then again, it empowers them to choose what they need and what they want for their families during this Christmas season. And so that's kind of where we are. That's kind of what we're focusing on right now. Is our main operation here in Pasadena is our food pantry. We are getting ready to be, we just broke ground on doing permanent supportive housing project here in Pasadena. In fact, they just literally started knocking our building down yesterday. So you might hear some rumbling in the background. And so we're going to be building 67 studio apartments for homeless. 20 of those will be for veterans, and then the rest for men and women homeless here on our site, with an expanded social service office area for our food distribution and case managers to expand our existing programs.
All right. And before we come to you, I would like to ask Roy, if there was someone, a viewer at home who knows someone who is in need of your services, how would they go about getting in contact?
So the best way to do that is that they could always give us a call directly to our phone here, or they could also get to us through our website. So if they just go to www.salvationarmy.org and then click on Pasadena, it brings up all of our information, and they'll be able to find out. They can contact me, our case managers, and find out what information we have for the clients that we serve.
Do you by any chance happen to have your phone number available as well?
Sure. So the phone number is 626-773-4416.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to ask you the same question. Tell us a little bit about what you face on a daily basis with Union Station. What's a day in the life like?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We have so many different areas, but so let me talk about some of them. One of the first things is we do outreach. So we have teams that literally go out into encampments, under bridges, wherever they can find people. And it's really about building relationships, because the people that are living there have often gone through tremendous trauma and abuse and are very untrusting of somebody just coming up to them. So our workers will work with them. They'll get them signed up for services. That's a really important piece. People talk about people, service resistant or wanting to be homeless. The fact is that most of the people experiencing homelessness in the San Gabriel Valley are actually signed up for services, and we know who they are. Our staff works with them, starts a housing plan, builds trust, and then works together with the client to go, okay, what do you need? And Roy, you mentioned it a few times. It's the client driven, kind of what is it you need and how can we help you? And that builds trust. So we work with them, and then sometimes we will get them in what we used to call shelter, we now call bridge or interim housing. And in Pasadena, we have both for adults. We have our adult center, we have our family center for families. So short-term housing. But right from the moment we meet people, we work on a housing plan to get them into permanent housing. So sometimes they'll go into one of our interim housing sites, and sometimes, rarely, because it's hard to find, we'll get them directly into housing. We have permanent supportive housing buildings in Pasadena. We have a number of them, both for families and for adults. And congratulations, Roy, we're really thrilled that you're building some more housing. And we also do what we call scattered site housing. So our staff find apartments all over the county for people. But once people are housed, we provide full wraparound services. And again, it's whatever that person needs to be successful, whether it's addiction, mental health services, job training, just connecting them to a local faith group or whatever that person needs to help them thrive. And we continue to work with them. We also have a department that does employment. So we help people get jobs, build resumes, do all of that. We work with hospitals. We have an amazing partnership with USC Keck School of Street Medicine. So we actually provide medical services to people while they're living on the streets. We have a full advocacy department because we talked about, pushback in the community. So we work with communities and with political figures. And finally, we just opened 2 Project Home Key hotels in Northeast LA and El Sereno, where we managed to have 2 complete encampments move inside. Within just a few days, 2 encampments were gone and they're in the hotels, and now we're getting them into housing. So those are a few of the things that we do.
And how would someone get involved if they were interested in volunteering with your organization, or if somebody needs services?
Yes, and just like Royce, you can do this in 2 ways. You can call our front desk. That's 626-240-4550. And you can speak to our receptionist there who can point you in the right direction. Probably the easiest way is to go on our website, and that's Union Station HS, as in homeless services, so unionstationhs.org. And we have both a volunteer portal on there, so you can go on, fill it out. We do have training and orientation for our volunteers. Or there's a place that if you're a client or needing services, you can also go there and you can find out how to get services, and one of our staff will get back to you.
Thank you for that. Roy, again, moving back into our question of earlier, certainly your organization relies heavily on the kindness of volunteers as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So very much like Ann, we live off of our volunteers. We have a very small paid staff, and the majority of the work that we get done is through volunteers, and we couldn't do it without them. And so really, in kind of what Ann said is we have opportunities, just a gamut of helping in our food distribution, sorting food with our Christmas events coming up. We also have yearly events where we do a prom dress event for teenage girls, and we have volunteers that can come, and we have dresses that are donated, and then we give them a whole shopping experience, and we have volunteers that can come in and help the girls pick out their prom dresses. We also have it for guys as well. Not as many tuxedos, but there's a lot more dresses than the tuxedos. We have back to school programs that we have during the summertime. We also have youth programs that go on during the summer day camp programs. So there is opportunity to serve year round. All of our volunteers, we do ask that they go through a background check. So they are vetted and checked. And then we do have training for them, and specifically training for any of our volunteers that help us with any of our vulnerable clients that we serve, especially children and seniors. We have some special training for volunteers to do that. And if anyone is interested in volunteering in any of these things, or especially at Christmas time, as that's going to be our busiest season coming up, same thing, they can go to our website, which is probably the easiest way. Again, www.salvationarmyusa.org. Click on Pasadena, and it'll take you to the link on where to go. And then also they can call us at 626-773-4416 and just let us know that you're one to volunteer, and we'll get you plugged in.
Well, of course, as we've already noted, we are coming into the holiday season. Thanksgiving will soon be upon us, and that'll be followed by Christmas and, of course, New Year's. And traditionally, people tend to look inward and start making purchases for their families, and making preparations to spend time with their families. Add to that the pandemic that we are just now starting to see the slightest bit of light at the end of that tunnel. Of course, we have talked about the downturn in the economy, the loss of jobs that has occurred as a result of the pandemic. And with all that in mind, are the holidays a more challenging time for both of your organizations and the work that you do?
I would say that, I mean, the challenge for us is every day. I mean, we see challenges on a day-to-day basis. The holidays, it seems to be a time when, to your point, Joe, that people are more generous, more aware of being philanthropic and giving, during the Christmas time. And so we do benefit from that. I mean, like probably most organizations, the Salvation Army is the biggest income time of the year for us. It's the one time of the year that we are out actually soliciting in front of stores, with our red kettles. And so that's actually going to be happening here in a couple of weeks, just right the week of Thanksgiving. And so that's an opportunity again for people to donate. And when people do see those red buckets, it really is, it does bring hope to a lot of people. And again, that money stays directly to us here in Pasadena to help us fully fund everything that we do locally. And I would say the challenge would be more so for us is just that we're expecting an uptick again in those that are going to be signing up for Christmas, those that are going to be needing meals at Christmas time, families that are going to be needing toys. So I think the challenge will be is prayerfully, hopefully, we will be able to have enough supplies on hand for the anticipated uptick, especially for those families, again, that are right on the verge of just paycheck to paycheck and are needing that little extra help this Christmas season. So that's, I think, one of the potential challenges we might be facing this Christmas.
Yeah, I would say very much the same that Roy said. And on the one hand, there's a lot more giving this time of year. So this is when the majority of our donations for the year do come in at the end of the year, which we appreciate. I think this year we're starting to see, because there's been incredible generosity during COVID, but people are suffering cost of food. Like we're seeing our food donations go down a little bit this year because I think just the cost of things has gone up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're really thrilled to be able to help, especially, families at Christmas. We also have a big toy drive and we let parents come in and they shop for their kids. So again, it's that idea that they feel like they can pick and choose. So it's wonderful. I think the hardest thing is that people need things in July and as well as at Christmas. So as much as we appreciate the donations this year and all that happens, we also want people to realize that the needs aren't just at the holiday season. We love providing a Thanksgiving meal for people or Christmas gifts for your kids, but we also want to be able to help people when it comes after the holidays. Often that's the time that's the hardest, when the giving slows down or stops, but the need is still there.
Well, that is certainly an excellent point. But of course, with the holidays immediately in front of us, I'd like to take a moment to talk about an upcoming event called Thanksgiving in the Park. And perhaps you could tell us about it.
Yes. So we have Dinner in the Park, which this is our 51st year of Dinner in the Park. And we used to have it actually in the park, but since COVID, we don't have a big gathering in the park. But what we've done is we want to continue to serve people. So we've actually divided Dinner in the Park into 3 separate events. So on November the 17th, we have what we call All the Fixings. And what that is we provide a food box with all the fixings for people who have the ability to cook. So a lot of people who, for example, have been newly housed, they were homeless, they're now in housing, but they still don't have a lot of means. So they can come on the 17th, or we will deliver a box with everything they need, including the turkey, or a vegetarian option for those who may not eat turkey. So that's the 17th. Then the following week on the 24th, we have prepared dinner. So you can come to our adult center in Pasadena on Raymond Street, and you can get a full Thanksgiving cooked meal. So that works really well for people who are actually living on the streets and can't cook. So they can come up, and it's amazing. We have our chef, Marissa, who everybody adores, is an amazing cook. So you can come and get that. And we serve literally thousands of meals. And then on actual Thanksgiving Day, we have special Thanksgiving dinner for people who are living at our shelters or in our housing who may not have a kitchen. They have a shared kitchen. So we provide kind of for our residents, we provide Thanksgiving. So we do it in 3 chunks. We have lots of volunteers who come out, and we're still looking for a few more volunteers. So if you want to help on any one of those days, we need people. And this year we're really thrilled. SoCal Gas has sponsored our dinner in the park, so they'll also bring some volunteers, and they're helping us out. And then the convention center kindly, amazingly cooks. I think it's like 200 or 300 turkeys that they roast. And then we're going to have a carving celebration with some of our local city councilors. So it's amazing.
It sounds like there are quite a bit of events planned for those days. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Lots of stuff going on. A lot of people, a lot of volunteers. We provide things for people. It's both a celebration on one hand and a Thanksgiving, but it's also recognizing that for some people, this may be the only way they will get a full hot meal on those days.
And I believe you mentioned this already. It bears repeating that you are still looking for and can always use more volunteers. Is that correct?
We can use more volunteers, and we still need more food. And again, that's on our website. Go to our website, and if you don't want to cart a turkey and drop it off, you can also make a cash donation and just specify that it's for dinner in the park. And we will make sure, like Roy said, we make sure we honor the wishes of the donor, and we will make sure that funding goes for dinner in the park.
And your organizations, both of you, provide similar programs probably for the Christmas and New Year's holidays as well?
Yeah, I would assume so. Again, for us, we'll be serving approximately 750 families, about 2,500 children with food, gift cards, and then also the opportunity for parents to come and shop for their children for toys as well at Christmas time. And of course, I want to stress the fact that the needs of the people we're serving is not only in December, but it goes into January, February, March, April, and May. And so we just appreciate the support of the community, and anything anybody can do to help, whether it be donating toys, monetary donations, volunteering, seeing a red kettle in front of a store, you see it, please put something in there, even if it's a quarter or a nickel. It all adds up. And we're actually experimenting this year with what's called tip tap, so people can actually tap amounts of $5, $10, and $20 at a kettle at the locations. If they don't have cash, take Bitcoin, whatever you want to throw in there, we will take it.
Love that.
Okay, so we've talked about the holidays, and certainly that brings a sense of warmth and togetherness. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that it also means a downturn in the weather. Certainly here in Southern California, we, at least of late, haven't seen so much in the way of rain, and we don't get snow. But colder temperatures are upon us shortly. And what does that mean for both of your organizations?
Yeah, that's really true, because I think we all assume, well, California is warm, but every year people experiencing homelessness die on the streets because of weather, and often they're frail to begin. Every year in Pasadena, they have a cold weather shelter. And so I don't know about you, Roy, your organization, but the cold weather shelter is actually run by another organization in Pasadena called Friends Indeed, and they work together with the city. But we all work together. We all have many of the same people that we work with. The problem last year was with COVID, they couldn't do it. So instead, the city funded hotel vouchers. So for people when it was really cold, really bad weather, the city, through Friends Indeed, would provide hotel vouchers for people so they could get off the streets and stay warm. I think it was for like 72 hours. So I'm not sure what's happening this year, what they're going to do, because usually that starts in about January, February, depending on the weather. But in the meantime, we're constantly working with people experiencing homelessness to try to get them off the streets, whether it be into temporary our shelters or into hotels. But the fact of the matter is there's a dreadful shortage as well, which is why we see so many people on the streets. So it's a sad situation, but hopefully this year again we'll have the cold weather shelter.
Yeah, and for us, we unfortunately don't have the capability at this point for us to do a shelter for cold shelter here on our location here in Pasadena. But we do partner with other agencies, and we do try to find a shelter for them. One of the things that we do try to do is the best that we can with making sure that we have blankets on hand and jackets on hand, and also tents and tarps is something that is a need as well. Because I don't know about, I'm sure Ann faces this too, but we definitely with the chronic, what we would call chronic homeless that are literally living under the streets, under the bridges and living on the streets. Those are the ones that, for whatever reason, either you can get them in a shelter or there's no room or they don't want to go. Those are the ones that we really try to have some extra things on hand during those colder, rainy months. And so again, those type of items is something that if people were to donate, we would definitely be able to share with our clients during those uncertain climate times.
And, I just want to throw in here too, Joe, that a lot of the faith groups around Pasadena are pretty amazing. We're very lucky in this community to have really committed faith organizations. I mean, Salvation Army, but others. And a number of them will have programs. They'll have safe parking programs. We've worked with some of the churches to start what we call safe haven programs, where people can stay on property. They'll have sleeping bags, whatever, but they're provided a level of safety and security because they're on church property, even though they're outside. All Saints Church, for example, in Pasadena does that. So we really try to do whatever we can to help people be safe and as comfortable as possible. Obviously, they need their own home, but until then, we do whatever we can, and we work with a lot of these different organizations.
Well, I'd like to ask you now about looking toward the future, both of you. Are there programs and services that you would like to or plan to be instituting coming up in the new year?
Well, I can speak to that for us, for the Salvation Army. I alluded to it earlier, but the big thing for us is, again, that we are going to be having a permanent supportive housing on site here at our location. And so we are looking to open and have those clients start living in those apartments in May of 2023. So we're about 18 months away or so until we can have that happen. So that's on the horizon for us. And so what we're doing right now is we're beginning to figure out how we can strategically work with these clients that will be living on site. And I think Ann mentioned it in their approach is to really look to how we can provide a holistic wraparound services for those clients. So sometimes I think there's a mindset of, well, let's just build some housing. We put people in housing and then we forget about them. And a lot of times those people that are needing these homes, there are quite a few that do need some extra help and maybe teaching them some sort of life skill or some type of skill to help them find a job and whatever the case might be. So we're looking at how we can strategize to provide some wraparound services through our expanded social services that we'll have on the ground floor, and looking at how we might be able to partner with other agencies to leverage each other's strengths and work together. Because like Ann said, there's so many other nonprofits, other churches in the area. I've only been here in charge of the Salvation Army in Pasadena since July, so I'm very new to the area. But I've quickly come to realize that Pasadena is a very, in a good way, close-knit community that are willing to work together. And this housing project is testament to that, of the community, the neighborhood, realizing the need for housing, the city, the county, all coming together to make this happen. So I look forward to hopefully, Ann, meeting you one day face to face, and we can strategize on how we could serve together, use each other's, leverage each other's strengths. Because the unique thing about the nonprofit world is, yes, we are kind of serving the same demographic, and we all are kind of doing the basic, basic programs, but we all have a certain niche. There's certain things that Union Station can do that necessarily the Salvation Army can't do, and vice versa. And I think leveraging that. So again, there's an open door policy in essence to any agency. So if we can't help, we'll move them to the right person that can, and create that synergy again, where we see people holistically and as a human, and that with everybody working together, we can really make an impact here in Pasadena and the states and beyond. So that's what's really in store for us right now locally, is this housing project.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And yes, Roy, you and I will definitely have to connect. Some of us are saying we have a couple of housing projects that are in the works. One right in the Civic Center area that's going to be for seniors, and another project on Fair Oaks, also for seniors, because again, I mentioned that's a rapidly growing population. We're expanding. I think one of the things we're really struggling to make happen here in Pasadena is to have more interim housing beds, so shelter beds available for people, and to do more. There is a tremendous shortage in Pasadena. So I put that out into the universe, and hopefully some of our city officials will hear that. There's a lot going on in Pasadena around housing, and Pasadena does an amazing job. It is one of the best cities in the state when it comes to housing, and I'm really proud of the work that's been done by elected officials and by faith groups, all of the people we talked about. We're also doing a lot of work. We mentioned volunteers. We have a volunteer program that we're hoping to expand, and it's called Community Allies. And if anybody knows the Big Brothers Big Sisters model, it's kind of that model where we pair a person with someone who is newly housed. We don't pair them with someone who's still experiencing homelessness, because there's a lot of trauma and issues there. But once someone's been housed, we match them with a community volunteer just to be a friend. And we find that has been tremendously successful in helping people feel accepted and to learn how to be part of the community again. And people will go out maybe just to have a coffee, and sometimes people will help the person write a resume, whatever they need together. But that has been incredibly successful. And I throw that out if anybody wants to do something like that. We do ask for a commitment of about 6 months, but it's a way to get to know people. So that's something that we would really like to expand, because we find that is a profoundly effective way of bringing people back into community in a way that is very healthy and creates all sorts of wonderful things. So I want to throw that out there too, and hopefully we'll have people go, hey, I'd like to check that out.
Well, all of those programs certainly sound wonderful, and we look forward to seeing all the good work that you're doing. We're in the final moment of the show now. I would like to take this opportunity to once again let our viewers at home know how they can get in contact with your organizations if they know anybody that needs any of your assistance. And can we start with you? Can you tell everyone at home again how to reach your organization?
Yes, best way is through our website. It's Union Station HS. So that's Union Station HS as in homeless services.org. Go on there. There's a way to connect if you want to volunteer, if you need services, or just want to find out more information about us. Or you can call our front desk, which is 626-240-4550.
And Roy, for you as well, please let our viewers at home know how.
Yeah, so for us, if you, again, just contact our website, you can find a lot of our information on there for volunteering, for donating, and more about our organization in general for here in Pasadena. But it's www.salvationarmyusa.org. Click on Pasadena, and it'll take you right to all the information that's happening here locally. In addition to that, you can call us at our phone number. Our main desk phone is 626-773-4416. And then also, too, we are on Facebook, and you can just put in Salvation Army Pasadena, and our social media pops up with our Instagram and Twitter and all of that. You can find that information there as well.
I'm going to say that, too. We're on social media. Station HS, so check us out on social media. I'm too old. I forget those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Well,
Me too.
To the close of our program this evening, I would like to thank both of my guests, Miss Ann Miskey and Major Roy Wild. Thank you both for joining us this evening and for telling us all about the wonderful work that you're doing. We really do appreciate it. And I would like to wish both of you happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
You too. And to you too, Roy. It was wonderful.
Yep. Thank you. You too, Ann.
To our viewers at home, if there are topics you would like to see addressed on this program, you can email them to us at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org, and we may include them in a future broadcast. Until next time, this has been Arroyo Live. I'm Joe Carbonetta. Thank you for watching, and good night.